Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Today we will talk about a concept that you will really like, and I hope that it will help you in your future and as a programmer. Now, in previous video we talked about programming languages. However, when you dive into the world of programming, there are these three characters that you will see all over the place. API. Now, what's the meaning of API and what's the difference between API and a program that you write yourself and you use it? API is standing for Application Programming Interface. So it's an interface that is written by programs and programming, and it's available to you and your application, to be used by you in your applications, to be used in your programs and applications as a base that you can expand upon it, or sometimes calling it. Now, generally speaking, API is a piece of software that someone else wrote and you just get it and use it. Sometimes to make your life easier, sometimes to expand upon it and get more functionality, and sometimes to do things that you normally can't do. One of these, for example, is what we call MVVM and Community Toolkit for MVVM. Now, MVVM, Model View Model, is a concept in programming, okay? So don't get over the word MVVM. It's a concept in programming. Forget about that. But we have something that is called Community Toolkit. Community Toolkit. Now, Community Toolkit is an API that is written for MVVM. Its job is to make your life much easier. So when you subscribe your program to use Community Toolkit, you immediately get easier life using MVVM. Now, how can we add Community Toolkit and its subscription to our program? That's another story. We will talk about it later. However, when your program is subscribed to use this toolkit, then you can easily do MVVM, and in a way that you would think like, oh, wait a minute, why didn't I use it before? Now, you may think that, hey, what's so great about this? Let's give you an example of MVVM. You will have a piece of code called model, okay? This model will have a view to show up inside. And don't worry, I will give you understandable examples in few seconds later. And to show something in view by the model, we have something called model view. So it becomes MV, MV comes from model view and then view model. So MVVM, model view model. And if I want to give you an example, let's say that I have a piece of code that defines a person, okay? This person will have name, will have family name, maybe it has a phone number, address, whatever you think about for a person, okay? That's our model. However, we have a database somewhere on the hard drive that we want to put this information about the person in. Back in old days, you would sit down and write a form, being it a web form or a Windows-based form or Linux-based application form, whatever. You would fill in the data there, and the form itself was responsible of writing the data into the database and reading it from the database. This would work. However, it had many issues with unit testing. Wait a minute, what's the unit testing? We will come back to it later. But it had issues, okay? That's so far so good. We had issues with this approach. So people started another approach. They defined model view. Now, model view is responsible of handling the interaction with the database, and it has no understanding of how we are showing the data or how we are giving the data back, okay? It sits in here between these two. So it gets the data somehow, puts the data into the database, read the data to the database and give it out. It doesn't care how this data came in or who is using it and how is using it. So the data itself is multiple instances of persons that are models. Now this is a piece of code we write and it's model view. View itself are forms, web pages, or any sort of application that will show us something or have fields for us to put the data in, and that becomes view. Okay, that's model view, view, model, MVVM. A very brief explanation of MVVM. Early in your career, wow, okay. But here's the thing, if we would want to use MVVM, of course we have three pieces to write code for. One of them is the model view, one of them is the model itself, and one is the view. Now, writing a model is easy. It's few lines of code. Writing the view is something that we can't make automation out of it because it totally depends on your project, how you are handling the data, how do you want to display them, how do you want to collect them. Okay, so no one can make an automation for that. However, this piece of code, model view, had a lot of boilerplates that people had to sit back and write time and time again and again, over and over, just to make something available outside of this class. We will talk about encapsulation later, but this is the very brief understanding of it. We had to sit back and write like hundreds or 200 lines of code over and over, time and time again, a repetitive job just to get this one start going forward. And this is where APIs come in. For example, as I said, Community Toolkit. Community Toolkit makes it so much easier. So instead of writing 100 or 200 lines of code, you just write 3 or 4 lines of code and that's it. Everything will magically work. It's like a black magic. However, it's an API. You are calling some annotations and data calling on it, or method calls or function calls, whatever it's producing to you, to make use of these 3 to 4 lines of code, and in the background, the API is handling 100 or even 500 lines of code and makes your job easier. That's application programming interface. So, can I write an API myself? Let's get out of MVVM example, for God's sake. It's advanced stuff I don't understand. Forget about everything. Okay, can I write a piece of code that can be used by myself or others later? Yes, why not? Should I do that? Maybe no. Can I do that? Yes, definitely. Now, it raises a question. When do I need to write an API myself, and when do I need to call other APIs in my project? These two questions. First of all, if there is an API ready to be used already out there, there is a chance that you don't need to write your code yourself for an API. Just hook into that, subscribe your application to that API, and have fun using that API. There are situations that you may want to write your API yourself. For example, maybe there are 3 or 4 available APIs out there, but you don't like any one of them for some reason. Maybe they are not complete, maybe they have issues, maybe they have bugs, maybe the developer dropped supporting it, or many other reasons that can cause issues in your application, in your production later down the road. Or maybe it's heavy and it's unneededly complex. Or maybe you don't like how they are doing things. It may be exactly what you need, it may be complete, and it's being completely supported, but you don't like how they are doing things, and you think you can do better things and do it in a better way. Now be careful about this thought process. Yes, I had seen examples of it, but they are really rare. So if you think that you can do something better than the existing APIs, okay, by all means, try reinventing the wheel and try writing your own. However, sometimes you really don't have access to an acceptable API. That is when you may want to write your own. Now, here's a question you should ask yourself. How many times would I use this API in future? If I'm writing a code, for example, about a model of person, again, back to the MVVM example, and this model is being used in phone book, okay, I should ask myself, how many times will I write applications that have phone books in themselves so that I will need this person model? If it's only one single application and it has only one single phone book, okay, I write the model inside that application and get done with it. And I will develop it as much as I need for this special application. I don't go beyond that. If there is a possibility that I will write 10, maybe 20 more applications in future, and all of them will have phone books, yes, that is when I want to decouple this person from that application, or even the concept of phone book, completely decouple this model to itself, and maybe add more extra stuff, extra handling and coding and stuff in that, so that my other applications in future can use a completed person model. And that is when I developed my own API. Now, understanding what is an API is really critical. So far, we talked about how they are useful and when you should use them, and if you want to write your own or if you should use another person's API. However, it's really important to understand when you are dealing with an API or you are dealing with the base program that the API is working on it. What do I mean by that? Let's go into another example, Minecraft. Okay, let's talk about games, creepers, I don't know, skeletons. No. We are talking about the base program of Minecraft. Now, I will talk about this word later, fancy mod loader, or what mod loaders are, later when we are talking about how we are going to mod Minecraft. But long story short, mod loaders are API that hook themselves into Minecraft's original code and make your life easier and expand the abilities on Minecraft. However, if Minecraft change its own base behavior somehow, you can't go and ask the developer of this API, hey, give me that old thing back. Let's talk about an example. Back in 1.7 version of Minecraft, we would never use JSON. What is JSON? Don't worry about it. It's a way of presenting some information to the computer. Okay? It's about serialization, data storage, blah, 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 blah. Forget about it. However, we didn't have JSON. And after 1.7, or I don't remember, it's 1.10, it's really old now. Things started to change. Minecraft suddenly decided that, hey, I want to utilize and use JSON over and over and over in more and more places. So think about a mod loader back in 1.7, 1.9. They didn't understand JSON either because the Minecraft didn't understand it. Of course, the developers all knew what was JSON there. Both Minecraft developers or mod loader developers. They knew that JSON exists, okay, but we are not using it. Minecraft was not using it, so the mod loader API wouldn't use JSON. After Minecraft started using JSON, now this API developer had to implement code to have JSON covered because the base program is using it now. And that's API for you, okay? It's following what the base parent program is doing, just expanding on it. Now, I had seen some guy, it was actually recently, it was about a month ago, coming inside Fabric mod loader, telling them, hey, add this feature to Minecraft. And they were saying that, hey, Fabric mod loader is not about this, and it's not its job to do that. And the guy was arguing, yelling, and it was so harsh. His talking was so harsh that developers had to, tell him that, hey, stop right there or we will ban you from the room because you are disturbing everyone. Now, this assumingly kid didn't understand the meaning of API, because if he would understand that Fabric is an API, then he would understand that if Minecraft is not doing something itself as a core functionality, Fabric can't add that core functionality inside Minecraft. Fabric is an API on top of Minecraft to just make your life easier. It can't go and tweak the parent base project and add base functionality in there without disturbing the whole project and the whole thing, without causing big issues there. So API developers should be very careful about what they are doing. They can't change the core mechanics of the main concept. They just can make your life easier. Nothing beyond that. Understanding this is crucial in your future. Okay, enough talking about Minecraft, enough talking about mod loaders, MVVM, enough talking about anything that you don't understand anymore. How can we identify an API? If we see a piece of code, how can we say that, hey, this is an API or it's just a program doing its own thing? If you see a piece of code that opens doors toward outside to accept some information, process it, and give back something, chances are that you are dealing with sort of API. Because when I'm writing a Windows application, for example, I'm not opening my application to others. Yes, I may have a field for phone number of a person, but I'm not letting any third-party application send in some code to me and give him back some code and answer. No, I may have an interface for a real human sitting in front of keyboard, but that's it. I'm closed to myself. I'm not accepting any third-party application. If this application sends in some code, it will be rejected. I will completely ignore it. I don't understand who you are. Sorry, I'm not responding to you. No matter how many times you knock on my doors, it's closed. However, an API is completely open. It's like a black box, but this black box is open to accept some information from you and give you back some response. This is an API. So whenever you are dealing with this type of code, yes, you are dealing with an API. I hope this video became informative for you, and if you learned something, please tell your friends and everyone else to, hey, come and join me in my journey and learn from the one mentor and help him grow his own community on YouTube. Please hit that like button. It helps me a lot, giving me statistics about how many people are really liking my documents and what I'm teaching, and it will guide me, without you knowing it, it will guide me toward recording better content and helping you grow faster. Have fun, everyone. Bye-bye.